was working at a hospital, and during that work, and that part, cranial was very far away from me, but I got a head accident and was hit in a sailing boat accident, and I went to many places in the hospital to find out why I got headache and why I got difficulties in reading and become more and more stiff in the neck. And after years of surgery or years of investigation, I could not find anything. And then one of the guys in the hospital knew something about cranial work, so he suggested that there was an osteopath who practiced that in Copenhagen. So I went to her, and I could feel that there was she was touching the right spot. So I started to have many sessions and treatments. And then I got more and more interested in to explain not only the effects of the neck, but like the effects on my hip, my legs, my arms, how I use my eyes, my hearing, and I started to study it. And I came to this American institute, Oblich Institute, and after some years I practiced and more, and I took the education, and I shifted my work from the hospital to a private clinic, so I could practice it every day.
What was it that you did before?
I was a medical scientist, so I have my Ph.D. in medicine and worked with cancer research for many years. So many of my friends and my wife are scientists and medical doctors, so the first 2 years they would think I was talking a little bit strangely about how to have a very different approach to treat the body. One of my very close friends, he's a medical doctor and he's also a professor in neuroanatomy. So he was really said, it's impossible that you can touch or feel that. And for the first 2 or 3 years, he didn't believe me. Then one of his children got sick and he said, well, we have been to the hospital. Couldn't you have a look at my daughter? And he was just standing in the room looking, and he could see her daughter was starting to do some body movements. And she said, well, I got out of that pain. And he said, I don't know what you're doing, but maybe I would like to try it myself. Yeah, my advantage was that they knew I was working as a scientist and had my PhD, so they knew I was not fooling around and I really meant it seriously. So they believed I was doing the right thing the first years, but they didn't understand it. And so I had to, many of my friends and family, I tried to put my hands on them to say, can you feel this? And because I know the anatomy and I can say, you can feel this now. And some of the medical doctors say, yeah, I can actually feel this structure. I can feel a cranial nerve that has something to do with my facial movements or something like that. And I think that's one of the most important ways of how people get to know this kind of work is when they feel it on their own body. Then they know. Now I'm a teacher for the Oblich Institute, and I work very much. They have a set of working calling the Brain Speaks, where you try to palpate brain structures, and it's like it's the boss of the physical body. So when you touch the brain, you can really do something. And here I connected with a brain researcher and offered him to try to feel his own brain. And he was on the treatment table, and he was like, of course, not believing it. And he has been dissecting many brains, so he knows the structures very well. So he can say, oh, now I can feel you have a short pressure on this structure, now you feel this structure. So what we are doing now together is to explore how we can see how different diseases relate to when we have a brain trauma. Very often you see people later on in life gets Parkinson's, Alzheimer, and now research has shown that the circulation of liquids around the brain, if that's not clear, you get proteins and waste products, and that's one of the reasons for Alzheimer. So the fluid circulation in the brain is very, very important, and we can affect that by cranial treatment. That's one of our specialties, to make the fluid circulation in tissue, and especially around the central nervous system. So if we get tension, so we think of our brain as neurons, but only 20% of the human brain is neurons. The rest of the brain is support cells that we could call like the fascial connective tissue of the brain. And that is like in the body we have like a lymphatic system, but in the brain we call it the glymphatic pathway, and it's been newly discovered by science. And it makes fluid circulation around all the brain cells. And the brain cell needs nutrition, and they need the liquid to take away the waste products. So if we have some kind of tension or even small concussions, this fluid circulation is disrupted, and then we start to have many of the neurological diseases that we see is growing in the world. And it's become a big interest in the States, because we know it from boxers because they get a hit to the head, but many of the well-paid American football players, they get many small concussions to the head. And actually many American football players are developing neurological diseases as Alzheimer in a very early age. So now there's a research that links the fluid circulations to even small concussions of the brain. And that's what we feel when we are feeling the tissue around the brain, to see, oh, there's a tension, there's a restriction, and where we have a restriction, we do not have this fluid circulation.